So, good morning. Welcome to Unity of Chautauqua. I'm Reverend Barbara Williams, and I would like us to begin with our welcome song.
We come together in this moment. We bind our hearts and minds, for we all form a tapestry woven from one life, one creation, undivided, all unique expressions of God. We come together now in one accord. We come together in this moment. We bind our hearts and minds, for we all form a tapestry woven from one life, one creation, undivided, all unique expressions of God. We come together now in one accord.
So, let's just take a moment now as we allow those words to sink in. Understanding that the greatest gift right now that we give ourselves, our families, our world is to remember that we are that tapestry. And this week is special in that there's an election and there's an anxiety around that election. And we just understand that the greatest gift we can give as we begin our prayer this morning is to pray from that consciousness that instead of giving power to anxiety, gives power to oneness. So would you join me now in prayer? And so we take that deep breath, knowing that as we enter this presence, we just allow ourselves to let go. So if we're holding anything right now about the election, any fears, we know that we are giving the gift of this moment, knowing that as we come together, we create a powerful consciousness of healing. Not only for our country, but for the world right now is struggling with these same things. And so we call the great love into the universe, the great light into the universe that we call God. And our prayer is that we immerse ourselves in presence as we hold the high watch over our elections. We know that our heart's deepest intentions, joined with our passionate commitment to justice, to truth, to compassion, to democracy, require a patience as we are working towards the highest good. We hold that in this time, there is a resiliency, a revitalization of our country, of our world. And while we can't see it yet, we hold that we don't give up on our fellow citizens, on all those working towards good. In prayer, we reimagine our shared humanity, knowing as we open our minds and hearts to each other, that we now are experiencing perhaps what seems like a tomb, but perhaps this is a womb, that we are giving birth to new understanding as a country, as a world. We are grateful for the wondrous experiments in freedom and responsibility we call democracy. And so we embody our prayers and send them where they are needed most. And so in all the holy names of God, we say amen and amen. And so it is. And so if you're joining us this morning, it's just an amazing morning in that we are beginning I think it's like 9-month process of living the 5 invitations. And this is based on a book, and it says, as you're reading this, you're seeing that says, Discovering What Death Can Teach Us About Living Fully. Now that might give you a setback a bit going, I don't know, discovering what death, how can that be? But I'm going to tell you that this is a life-affirming book. And so I hope you'll start joining us both, whether you are online, finding us on our YouTube, and you can find out everything about what we're going to do. We're going to be doing this the first Sunday of every month through June until we return to Chautauqua Institution in person starting late June. So you can go to our website, unitychq.org, and you can get to our YouTube, our Facebook. You can sign up for our emails and give a donation. So we thank you that you are being part of this and holding the consciousness for this adventure. And just to give you a little invitation about what's coming, today we're going to be working on the first invitation to living fully, which is don't wait. We'll probably spend a couple Sundays on that, and then we'll do welcome everything, push nothing away, bring your whole self to the experience. Find a place of rest in the middle of things, the 4th invitation. And finally, cultivate, don't know, mind. This is an amazing book. And so thank you for being part. And so now our musician, Janine, is going to move us into our first of our invitations, Don't Wait.
This is a song called Last Song by Daniel Nahmod. If this is my last song, if this is my final day, if tomorrow I'll be gone, what do I want to say? If this is my last song, if it's my time to go, when my body's moved on, what will I have to show? No, not fortune and fame, they scatter to the wind. The things that make a name just don't matter in the end. But is the world a little more peaceful? Oceans and sky a little more blue? Is humankind a little bit wiser about the good that we can do? Does the sun shine a little bit brighter where before there was only rain? If so, then I'm glad I came. If these are my last words for all the earth to hear, if all that I have ever been is about to disappear, if these are my last words, there's nothing that I need to say. I have only tried to serve. It's never been about talking anyway. So much hurt there is to heal. It's hard to understand. All I can hope to feel is that I am doing what I can. But is the world a little more peaceful? Oceans and sky a little more blue? Is humankind a little bit wiser about the good that we can do? Does the sun shine a little bit brighter where before there was only rain? If so, then I'm glad I came. Have I given hope to the hopeless? Has a hungry soul been fed? Has a child stood a little bit taller 'cause of something that I said? Have I left a little kindness? Have I eased a little pain? If so, then I'm glad I came. For that I'm so glad I came. If this is my last song, what do I leave behind? What do I pass on if I am out of time?
Thank you, Janine. I got teary-eyed during that, and the thought came to me that each of us is creating our last song all through our lives, verse by verse. We're leaving something of us behind, and what a gift that is. The poet Mary Oliver said this line, and it just has stayed with me. Tell me, she says, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? So just breathe that in for a moment. What? And one of the delights of aging is that I feel that it's getting wilder and more precious. I just really love this part of my life. I've loved many parts, and I've had many difficult parts, which I felt I was going nowhere and it seemed dark. And yet, as I've aged, just more and more of me is seeing the sacred, the precious. So I want to read from the book that we're doing, The 5 Invitations. And this is a quote from the famous psychologist, Abraham Maslow. And you might have heard of the Maslow hierarchy. A lot of us learned that in school, of needs, the hierarchy of needs. And he had suffered a near fatal heart attack. And this is in a letter he said about that. The confrontation with death and the reprieve from it makes everything look so precious, so sacred, so beautiful, that I feel more strongly than ever the impulse to love it, to embrace it, and to let myself be overwhelmed by it. Death and its ever-present possibility makes love, passionate love, more possible. Probably if I read that every day as I started my day, it would remind me that there is so much to embrace. And if I'm working from, and I, especially in my younger life, I was always doing things like I had a list, I had to get things done, I had to get kids to school, this to happen, and I was on automatic pilot. And while I was practicing some of that, the opportunity as I've aged is that I can practice more of it, more of this embrace of the possibilities that life has to offer. So one of the things about being minister that I've noticed is that I get to christen babies. I got to christen lots of babies, and I did a lot of celebrations of life. I was at a lot of bedsides near the end of people's lives. And what I discovered is it is at both the beginnings of our lives and near the end that there's a sacredness, that there's just this amazing transformation happening. To me, when I was around a baby, to me, when I watched people let go. And some experiences were hard to watch of people letting go of their life. And others were so inspiring that it's changed how I see my life. Just like Abraham Maslow had this big awakening. Being a minister took me so far out of my experience into other people's and gifted me. And so we're going to pass that on over these months, these first Sundays of every month. And there was a community minister that said that, and I don't remember his name, it was a while ago, but he talked about how he saw his life. And he said he felt it was like a wave, that this ocean that is God, this whole ocean that is God. And all of a sudden, our individuality comes up as a wave in this ocean, and it heads to shore. It heads to being physical, into the physical realm. And along the way, it picks up shells and rocks and all the experiences of life as it comes in this beautiful way onto the shore of existence in this realm. And then at a point, we start pulling it back. I've kind of seen that at my age. Some of the rocks that we pulled on the way in, we start dropping them in the. We don't need those. We start knowing what is sacred, and as we leave this life, we become that wave pulling out and moving back into the ocean that we call God, the universe. So that's an interesting way, because it's not the way that our culture sees it, does it? It compartmentalizes death, right? It's something separate. It's something we don't want. We want to hide from it. In fact, we don't want to age. We want to use all these creams and things on our faces, in our bodies, so that we can keep it away. And yet the most beautiful people, if I look back in my life, were some of the people that were the oldest. And on their face were these wrinkles that described this beautiful life. And so that's what I'm looking forward to as I've started my 80th. I'm 70 now, so I've lived 70. I'm trying to think of what the word is, can't think of it. But anyhow, I'm starting a new dimension. And I want to be aware of the gifts of that. So I'm so glad you're joining me in that. And I want to read again from our book, The 5 Invitations. We cannot be truly alive without some awareness of death. Death is not waiting for us at the end of a long road. Death is always with us, in the marrow of every passing moment. She is our secret teacher, helping us to discover what matters most. And the good news is we don't have to wait to the end of our lives to realize the wisdom that death is offering. Death reminds us not to hold on to life so tightly, Maybe we take ourselves and our ideas a little less seriously. We let go a little more easily. When we recognize that death comes to everyone, we appreciate that we are all in the same boat together. This helps us become a little kinder and gentler with each other. One of the things, gifts, I think, from thinking about death is that we can see it as a gift. Now stay with me here, but it is a gift to our planet and evolution. It's required. So a new version of us comes forward, a new version of the earth comes forward. Think if we had stopped and the first creatures on earth had stayed where they were and lived forever. We wouldn't have the magnificence. Now, what's interesting is our co-founder of Unity, Charles Fillmore, and the Apostle Paul. He got this from the Apostle Paul. He said death was the great enemy. And Fillmore actually believed that he could transform his body in such a way that he kept healing and giving energy to the cells rather than death. And there were a lot of Unity people that were horrified by the fact that he promoted this, including Myrtle Fillmore, our other co-founder. She didn't see it that way at all. She felt death was a natural process. And let me just say that their work on healing the body is an amazing work that has transformed people's lives to regenerate, to re-energize, to heal. And yet I feel like death is part of that. Death is part of that healing. Now, it's very interesting because when I was in ministerial school, one of the things I was assigned to was to get training in hospice. And so I followed some hospice chaplains around and worked with them during my school years. And I learned more about the way and the sacredness of death, or what it could be. So I'll give you a couple stories that stuck with me. One of the first was we visited a woman in her 70s, and she had been given a terminal diagnosis. And she locked herself. Now, she was still ambulatory. We visited her. She could get out. She could do everything. It had not stopped her physically. And yet she put herself in her house, locked herself down, was angry. And of course, she was going through that sad, but the chaplain had been working with her months and had just felt so hopeless about that. To watch her spend these last days, which she could have connected, and her family had actually withdrawn from her because of her attitude, because she was so negative about how unfair this diagnosis was. Second one, we go and we see a little boy. Now, I'm saying little because he was actually 18, but because of what the disease he had, it had kept him very small. He looked like 8 or 9. And we went into his room, and he was near the time when he would transition over into what I call that wave. He would become, the wave would then integrate into the waters of God. He was bandaged from head to toe, and you could just see his eyes and his nose, because he had a disease that not only stunted his body, but his skin too. And he was this light, came into the room, and he was so happy to see us. He just had this radiance about him. And he said, I made it to graduate from high school. He was 18. He made it. And he wanted to do this, he said, before he died. And a few years before, he'd gotten to go on a Disney cruise that had been sponsored by all the people. And he asked us about what was going on outside, what was happening in the world. I got out of that room and I wept. And I wrote and I journaled and I wept. Why him? There's no answer for that, except for he decided to be the light. He decided in the time that he had to be the light. That was over 20 some years ago. I had that experience. And it stayed with me. I mean, it's integrated into the way that I'm going to approach the rest of whatever I have left and the way I'm going to die. It's just this most amazing gift. Now, I had someone in my congregation, he just was delightful. And he kind of stirred things up a lot. And sometimes it was like, oh boy, here he goes again, because he had always ideas for change and things. Well, he'd gotten a terminal diagnosis, and I was visiting him in the hospital, and we were planning his celebration of life. He wanted to do it, which was great. That was just, and he was delighted about it. And the song theme he wanted is from Blood, Sweat, and Tears, a song from the 70s, When I Die. Now, many of you, I'm just going to read a few. I'm not scared of dying, and I don't really care. It starts out like that. And then it goes on to say, and when I die, and when I'm dead and gone, there'll be one child born and a world to carry on. And I'm not saying it is celebration that we were all laughing about that, but we were, but we also cried because we expressed this energy that he was about life and about death. And what a privilege it was for me to be included in people's lives like that they shared the sad things and the amazing parts of, and probably I got to know people more on their deathbed than I knew them for all the time in church. So again, from our book, another quote that I like. Suppose we stopped, this is gonna be hard to, let me say this. I don't get it. But suppose we stop taking life and setting it off to the side, the word, but cutting it off from our lives. Imagine if we regard dying as the final state of growth that held an unprecedented opportunity for transformation. Could we turn death like a master teacher and turn to it like a master teacher and ask, how then shall I live? So again, I'll go back to Charles, who thought death was the enemy. And what's amazing on his deathbed, and by the way, at 94, he said, and some of you have seen this quote, at 94, the same year he died, he said, I fairly sizzle with zeal and enthusiasm and spring forth with a mighty faith to do what ought to be done by me this day. Now feel that. Can you imagine at the very end of your life, he still has this vision that he is going forth with zeal and enthusiasm in his life. And the interesting thing is, it was recorded on his deathbed that he said his last words, it is glorious. He was moving back, that wave that was him, into the ocean, and he had a vision that was different from earlier, that he had pushed death away. Now, Myrtle Fillmore, our co-founder, she was just so interesting how she left this world. You know, she did Silent Unity. That's our prayer ministry that started in the 1800s and goes on for millions of people. Now people call Unity Village that are not part of Unity at all and call for prayer. Well, back in those days, they wrote letters, of course, and she had a group of women writing letters and prayer requests. And she said to the group one day in her 80s, I think she was 86, and she said, my time is done here. It is time for me to work on the other side. That gives me chills. It is time. They said she went home and they saw her out picking apples from a tree. And they said 3 days later, she had passed in her sleep. So we can go to that next adventure, whatever it is. And I have this feeling, this knowing that it's something that, like Charles said, it's glorious. It's glorious. But we also want our lead up to it to be just as glorious, to allow every day to be that. So our first invitation, don't wait. Just think for a moment. What does that mean? Don't wait. Is there something you've been holding back on? Not allowing yourself to experience? Steve Jobs had this line that he said every day in the mirror as he looked in the mirror. And he'd say, if today is the last day of my life, would I want to do what I am about to do today? And it's said that if he said that many days in a row, that he knew he needed to change. Now, the change might not be giving up on whatever we're doing. It might be a change in consciousness about seeing it in a new way. When I knew I wanted to go to ministerial school and I was still in the corporate world, I decided to make every day in the corporate world special. I didn't know how I was moving into it. Didn't even make sense how I would do it and leave an income behind and all the ways I had moved up in the corporate world over 25 years. And yet, as I did that, I just loved every moment of going in, and every door opened. And to me, that's the change of consciousness. We don't have to change the outer. But maybe if we feel unsatisfied with something, we start in the inner and see where that leads. What interesting next step is in our outer. So hospice leaders have gotten together and there was a book written about it, about the regrets, the 5 regrets people have when they're dying. And so I thought, it's kind of interesting. And I was thinking, wonder if I created the 5 affirmations about living that counterbalanced those regrets. And in fact, they transformed to an intention instead of a lack. So I'm going to read those to you because I kind of had fun with this. It was so much fun doing this. And so regret number 1 is the top regret people say, I wish I'd had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life others expected of me. Bingo. That was one of mine early. Again, aging has allowed me to get past that one. And my affirmation, I said, I am guided within to what brings me joy and serves the world. Those in my life support me being me. Cool. And that's happened in my life. More and more people have come in as I embrace the Unity 5 principles, as well as we're doing these 5 invitations, and it's shifted. I feel like I have all these wonderful people that support me being me. So, second regret, and I bet a lot of you have had this one. I wish I hadn't worked as hard. I was like balancing balls, especially when the kids were young. And I missed so many moments. I could have been more present with them. I thought back to that. So this is the affirmation I wrote for that one. I set healthy boundaries for work, family, friends, self-care, and spiritual renewal. Do you imagine saying that every time you started feeling you were overwhelmed in work, that you went back to, you wrote an affirmation? And by the way, I'm going to send these out in an email. So if you're on the email list, you'll see all of this coming week as we post the video of this. Regret 3, I wish I had the courage to express my feelings. My affirmation, my feelings bring valuable insights to my life's journey. I honor my deepest truth and express these insights with courage and love. Number 4, I wish I'd stayed in touch with my friends. This one I've been embracing a lot this year. I really expanded who I connected with when I'm in Chautauqua, and as well as calling people at home. I just got that at 70. This is the time to really get connected to what's really important. And so my affirmation, I open my heart and discover meaningful connections that I nurture. Regret, the fifth regret. I wish that I'd let myself be happier. Imagine all of us have times we've wished that we've just dragged down in the tiniest things, allowing them to sink us and giving our attention to them. And so my affirmation for that, each day I embrace wonder and gratitude. So those are mine. And know that you can create your own about that, so that as we look at the 5 invitations to allow death to be our teacher, to embrace life more fully. And so William Blake, the poet, said these words, and I think sums it up. And we are put on earth a little space that we may learn to bear the beams of love. Feel that, like at the end, if you're writing your last song, if you're writing your eulogy, could you say that I was here to bear the beams of love? Can you imagine that is what I could see that. I'm not having a tombstone, but it would be what I'd like to be remembered with grandkids, with anybody that says goodbye to me on this planet, that we were part of those beams of love. So part of this challenge of don't wait is for us to remember that there's an impermanence to life, to embrace that impermanence. And that allows us to don't wait, because otherwise we shrink up and we try to protect everything and we wait. But when we see the beauty in impermanence, then we start moving into finding the new and embracing it in ways our imagination would have never guessed. And so the Buddhists refer this, they call it the law of change and becoming. The law of change. The very essence of change calls forth the law of becoming. And they explain it like this. In constant dissolving, there is constant becoming. As I constantly dissolve those things that no longer serve me, I have opened up and allowed a flow of a new becoming. And this isn't a gift just to me. Just realize that all the affirmations about looking at our lives, they are a gift to those that follow us, that those are our partners. We are doing this to shift the consciousness of the world, as well as to bring that joy to ourselves. So Apostle Paul says, I die daily. And I imagine that on that very difficult job he had of bringing Christianity around the world, that he had to die to a lot of his old ideas for the synchronicities that happened in his life. Otherwise, we may never have heard the words that are so profound of Jesus, had he not died to his old way of seeing the world. And so each moment is a moment that is dying, and a new one is becoming. And in a very real way, we are born anew with each of those moments. We are born into possibility. So if you think of, have you ever seen a mandala where they've created a sand mandala, the Buddhist monks? I have. We had one come up to where my church was. And we didn't have it at church because we didn't have a big enough space. It was so big, but we sponsored the Buddhist monks that were doing it. And they came and they also did our labyrinth. They blessed it. It was just this amazing. And we saw the sand and the care and the days they spent. And then you know what they do, right? To remind us of that dissolving. The world is dissolving and something new is becoming. So they have to brush away what they created. So what are those opportunities that we may discover in impermanence, in uncertainty? And these are a few that I wrote down. The gift of living in the here and now. Knowing that everything will end and seeing how sacred it is in this moment. Savoring those things, just the day-to-day things. One of the things I can think of, and this is just funny because, I used to rush dusting the house because I had a bunch of other things to do. And now my house is filled not only with things that I've traveled and collected, but things people, my friends have given me. And I have pictures everywhere of family. I'm just into lots of pictures of family everywhere. And I dust those with just this, it's become a sacred process. We start seeing this as sacred. The little children in those pictures are they're big children now. And yet I bless that consciousness that we went through. And it's that shifting, that moment to moment, shifting and allowing something to become sacred that maybe we never saw before. And knowing yet it's impermanent, I'm going to say goodbye to all those, and some of the people in that pictures I said goodbye to already. And when I'm dusting them, I bless the gift that they left me with. Just an amazing process. If you can believe dusting, think of all the other things that you can do that invite that consciousness, from washing dishes to serving that meal to your family, to those you love, to yourself, nurturing those cells in your very body. It becomes this sacred walk through all of it by the very act that we know it's not forever and therefore so precious, as Abraham Maslow said. To live in appreciation, gratitude, that was another thing that I found in impermanence. And another one I'm waking up, this one's harder to do, is to practice simplicity, because I have all these little things that remind me, and yet there are parts that I'm ready to let go of. To discover what is most valuable. That's ultimately what it is. Impermanence allows us to discover that. So I'd just like to sum it up as we enter a time of meditation. Can each of us make a decision to hold life more lightly and yet with the sacredness that it, and take this invitation. Let's not wait. Let's not decide we're on automatic pilot, allow automatic pilot to keep waking ourselves up moment by moment. And so now Janine is going to take us into our meditation.
I surrender to not knowing. I surrender to not knowing. To keep beginning over and over again. To keep listening over and over again. I surrender to not knowing. I surrender to not knowing. To keep beginning over and over again. To keep listening over and over again. I am willing to be changed changed by what I hear. I am willing to be changed. I am willing. I surrender. I surrender.
So let's just take a deep breath of that. Allow those words, I surrender. How does that feel in our body? From the top of your head, right down through your torso and legs and arms, and right to the bottom of your feet. Because we know when we hold tight, our muscles reflect that. And so right now, the invitation is to surrender so that that very presence of spirit, as we soften, so spirit softly speaks. Over and over again. My commitment to my life, surrendering over and over again. To what is awaiting spirit. To move and do and love through me. To bear the beams of love through me. And my first step is not knowing, not holding, allowing and listening. So that I may be changed by that still small voice. So that I may see the beauty in impermanence. That I may live in the here and now more fully, more joyfully, more sacredly. Knowing that everything ends and moves back into that ocean of God. So I make that commitment to deeply engage in this life that has been gifted to me. That is my divine appointment for this time that I share my physical form on earth. Just feel my heart expand with that gift, that awareness that this spirit of love has given me life. And I surrender. I open. I embrace. And I free myself gently from the need to control this expression, these beams of love. I am discovering what is most valuable. What is the song? What is my last song that I'm composing second by second, minute by minute, day by day, that makes the world a little sweeter and loving, that touches those around me and allows us to be vulnerable and yet powerful in knowing our impermanence and knowing that that transcends, that we transcend that impermanence, that we are life eternal. I discover the precious, the sacred, and I embrace it in the silence. I surrender.
To be changed by what I hear, and I am willing to be changed by what I hear. I am willing to be changed. I surrender.
Thank you, Janine. It touches my heart so deeply, that song. So our author says that perhaps we may be gifted with 30,000 days to play with the game of life, to embrace the possibilities, these beams of love. And so I thought, well, I'll just calculate. I'm thinking I might have 7,000 of those days left. Wow, that just dawned on me. 7,000 I might have left. But even if I have only one day left, who knows? I don't know, not always in touch with the deepest of my soul on this journey, but I want to hold that day as sacred. Just slow down and see that day and nourish that day as sacred. So as Mary Oliver invited us with this question, then what will you do with your one wild and precious life? And so that is. So thank you for joining us. And now it's our time for our offering. And I want to tell you a little about something that just really just makes me so happy and excited. And that is, we are preparing for the next ministers that come, the Unity ministers that are coming to Chautauqua. Our board and Janine and myself are evaluating different ministers, and we're expanding some of the possibilities, going a little further than we've gone before, looking for authors as well, some of the Unity authors, and seeing who's available to come. And so it's this amazing thing. So for the next 2 months, we'll do that. And so I invite you to consider your offering. If you go to our website, unitychq.org, and there's a place at the top where you donate. It takes you down to the bottom where there's a little thing you can donate. Or if you get in our email, you can all see there's always something to donate. And there's an address as well on the website and on our email where you can send in a check. So I hope you'll consider that, because one of the things required for our ministers to come is we house them and we get them gate passes and we provide for them a way from their very busy ministries to experience Chautauqua Institution. It is such a gift. And know that your gift goes there and creates an experience for someone that is creating experiences for all these other people. So think how that spreads. And so our affirmation that we say as we give, so if you put your hands out and just hold that there are these gifts, that whether it's 7,000 or I have 1 day left, this is a gift. And so I hold that, and together let's say that divine love through me blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, and all that I give, and all that I receive, and I am grateful. And just take your hands, bring them to your heart, and allow that gratitude to just fill you as Janine leads us in singing, I'm so blessed.
I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful for all that I have. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful for all that I have. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful. I am so blessed.
So would you join me now as we say our prayer for church? And I am going to get my globe. I have my soft, and I forgot to bring this to Chautauqua Institution this summer, and I'm really determined so that we can pass it around and have more hands love on this globe. It's all soft and mushy. So as we say our prayer for protection, we know that there are many people right now that are feeling a lot of stress about elections, about inflation, stresses on that. And we've gone through an epidemic that changed people's lives. And so we hold this, we hold that through those most difficult times, we expand our hearts, our minds, our blessings. So let's say this together. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. The presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well. And feel that, own that, and so it is. Thank you for celebrating with us.